Good evening, everyone. I'm Carolyn Nelson Goddard, Florida PTA President. Welcome to the September 20th evening edition of Road to Success. Our topic tonight is insurance. We're joined by guest facilitator Jamie Fagan, who is the president of Association Insurance Management, better known as AIM to all of us. Before we ask Jamie to get started, I'd like to introduce the members of the Executive Committee and Board of Directors who have joined us this evening. So I'm going to go in the order that you are on my screen so that I don't miss anyone. Melanie Williams, Secretary.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Melanie. Karen Mazzola, Vice President, Educational Development.
Welcome.
Maxine Lewis, President-elect.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Felita Tutt, Chair of our Education Committee.
Good evening.
Wendy King, our Membership Chair.
Good evening.
Melanie Gamble, Chair of Media and Marketing.
Good evening, everybody.
Tiffany Graham, President of Duval County Council, PTA.
Good evening.
Alvin Gainey, Chair of Leadership Development Committee.
Good evening, everyone.
Maria Norton, President of Miami-Dade County Council.
Good evening. Sorry, hard to get on mute on the phone.
That's okay. I do believe Kay Hawkins just joined us.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Kay. Kay is our Northeast Region Coordinator. Who am I seeing? Who else am I seeing? Kimberly Adamski, our compliance person from our office staff.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. And I think I got everybody. If I missed you, chalk it up to the head, not the heart, but I think I got everyone. So thank you again for being here. We're very fortunate to have a guest facilitator this evening who's going to talk to you about not only how to keep your local units safe, but about AIM itself and just all things insurance. Jamie, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Carolyn. Well, I know we don't all really want to hear everything about insurance, so I'll try to make this as painless as possible. But yes, we are AIM. That's what I like to hear. Yeah, so we are an insurance agency based in Dallas. I like to give everybody a little background about who we are, because we consider ourselves kind of the experts in PTA insurance. We started our agency in 1989. Our very first client was Texas PTA, and we have been growing ever since. This is all that we do. We specialize in educational nonprofits. So largely PTA, but also educational foundations and other types of booster clubs and parent teacher groups. But we don't sell car insurance or any other types of insurance. So we pride ourselves on the service because we feel that we really understand PTA. And after having done it for over 34 years, we've tailored our policy and really, we're right there with you in understanding the risks around PTA. So with that, I will get into why your group needs insurance. We'll go through the types of coverage that we offer, some of the risks that you face as a PTA, and what you can do to protect yourself. So why do you need insurance? To protect the assets of the PTA and the assets of its members. So you or your members can be individually sued for something that happens at a PTA event. The PTA policy will step in and protect not only the PTA, but the members who are part of the PTA. So that is a wonderful benefit. Anybody can sue for any reason, and they usually do. I think we're all pretty well versed in this these days, but we see lots and lots of just not very valid claims, but you still have to defend those. PTAs are not immune from liability. I don't think this is quite as much of a misconception today, but it used to be, widely believed that the PTA's relationship to the school and a government, type entity made them immune from liability. So that is not true. And in fact, usually your school insurance does not cover the PTA. There will be occasions where there are things that the school insurance may cover, but pretty much 10 times out of 10, if you give them a list of the activities that you guys are doing and all the things that you need to protect, they are not going to cover it. They won't probably cover bounce houses or any of your high risk activities. They're not going to cover your money. So that's a big one. We'll talk about that later, but we do see that as the most frequent claim. And as I mentioned previously, attorney fees. So our policies range anywhere from $65 a year to, $100 or $200 a year. Typical attorneys around, anywhere from $250 an hour to, $700 an hour. So we see that as, a pretty good backup. Just because if you had to defend yourself, attorney fees would be quite expensive. So what kind of insurance should you consider? So we offer this list of coverages to our PTAs, event insurance, otherwise known as general liability for your for the events that you put on, embezzlement insurance, so this is what protects your money, directors and officers, so protects the decisions of your directors and officers, and property insurance. This is not real property, this is business personal property, so fundraising, merchandise, popcorn machines, things like that. And that's probably the least purchased policy. But again, this is the full suite of coverages that we offer to PTA. So the first one we'll talk about is general liability. So what does event insurance protect you from? Protects you from bodily injury and property damage. So this is third party. So it is bodily injury if someone falls and gets hurt at your event. And then property damage for not your personal property, but if, someone has a vehicle parked outside of your event and let's say a ball gets thrown through their windshield, they're going to look to the PTA for liability since that's your event. So that is the type of property damage that we're talking about. If something is damaged in the school gymnasium during one of your events, again, covered under general liability. So who needs protection under general liability? Our policy covers the named insured, which is your PTA, all the members, the volunteers, and employees, if you have any employees. So whether you buy insurance from us or someone else, you just want to make sure that especially volunteers and members are included in your policy. We offer a limit under general liability of 1 million or 2 million. Pretty standard, I'd say in most cases. Not a huge need for a $2 million limit unless you're doing, really high risk activities. And then that might be a whole separate conversation. So some types of activities that cause you liability. So a lot of these are really obvious. I think bounce houses are kind of one of the #1 things that we talk about because they are covered under our policy and they are probably the most high risk. We've seen probably 7 or 8 this year already. I mean, we are in September, but that's 1 a month still. Pretty fair losses. So what people don't always think of are things like meetings. So even if they're just having a board of directors meeting, if somebody falls in that meeting and gets hurt, technically that's a PTA event. And while general liability is intended for third party, we have what's called medical payments component of general liability, and your directors and officers as volunteers could be covered. Also PTA meetings for any of your members or attendees. And again, all these, the rest are just, fairly general dances, roller skating parties, things like that. Most of the events that you guys are putting on. Activities that are not covered. Auto, this can be added as an endorsement, but standardly it is excluded. If you're interested in adding it. It's only $5 a year. And we add what we call hired and non-owned autos. So it's intended for autos that you rent or charter. So if you charter a bus for a field trip, or non-owned autos, which are autos that are driven by your volunteers, they own them and they drive them in the scope of PTA duty. So whether they're going to pick up supplies for an event, or they are helping to transport someone to an event, and that is part of the event is the transportation. That's something that would be covered under our auto rider. Other things that are not covered: watercraft, workers' compensation, that's a completely different type of coverage, fireworks, mechanical rides, aircraft, and organized sports. We talk a little bit about organized sports because organized sports is defined as established teams with regular practices and games. So the intent of this is to exclude school teams. If you have a fundraising event where you have, one-on-one basketball or teacher-student basketball, things like that, those are not considered organized sports and are generally covered by the policy. So again, it's just, we have, some PTAs who are trying to step in for the school and who are actually running football practice. And we do not cover those type of events. We're going to talk about two types of endorsements that are available under the general liability coverage. So you have to have general liability to get these endorsements. The first one is medical payments. And I will say $5,000 per person in medical payments is automatically included in your general liability. So what is medical payments? It's basically out-of-pocket medical expenses for injuries that happen at your event. So someone doesn't have to sue. Oftentimes we see that this is the type of coverage that is offered. Somebody, a child gets hurt in an event. They don't want to see you. They're just, they have $500 in medical bills and they'd like for you guys to pay for them. So it's really accessible. Usually we just step in and pay for them. And again, there's no need for a suit. It helps because it deters the need for a lawsuit, which will ultimately be, less of a claim overall to just, handle the medical expenses up front. But if you do anything more high risk, we have the ability to increase these limits. We recommend it for, again, things like bounce houses, trampoline type events, or rock climbing walls, things that are more high risk. One of the things that I may have missed in the beginning, and that I like to say at the beginning and the end, is that we pride ourselves on being really accessible to PTAs. So we don't have a phone tree. You can contact us anytime, whether you have insurance with us or not. You can call us and say, hey, we're having this event, and what do you think? Do we need, a medical limit increase or not? Or do we have coverage for this? So I'm, going through all these things, and I don't expect everybody to, really soak in all of the insurance knowledge, but reminding you that we are super accessible, and that's what we're here for. Talked already about this, really just considering medical payments based on the type of activities that you do. The next endorsement is the media liability. And this came about as of about 6 or 7 years ago as a continuous ask. And we started to see a little bit more exposure in this arena as we're all getting a little bit more savvy with our websites and social media. This definitely took off with COVID as we saw, an even bigger increase in the utilization of social media and website presence. So what does this protect you from? Posting photographs without getting a release, using a trademark or a logo without permission. We see that sometimes PTAs will have an event, and let's say they cater Chick-fil-A. So they put Chick-fil-A's trademark on their flyer, or maybe on their, flyer posting on their website. And a lot of the bigger companies will have algorithms where they search the internet for anybody who's using their logo, and then they look to see if they have permission. So we see this from time to time. It's usually a fine of $250, $500, but there's no deductible under the media liability or the general liability. So this would step in if you got fined for something like that. Misrepresentation of information, making confidential information public. Usually those are purely accidental. Something was put up on your website that you didn't think was confidential, maybe the results of a fundraiser or something like that. And somebody takes issue with making that confidential information public. This also could be accidental release of, someone's name or phone number, something like that. This is a list of, the social media included, but pretty much anything that we call social media would be included in the media liability. Embezzlement, so also known as crime or bond insurance. General liability is our most high dollar claim. Embezzlement is our most frequent claim. We see more embezzlement claims than anything else. These are the two coverages that if you are on a pretty tight budget and you need to pick and choose, you can't get the full gamut of insurance. These two coverages are what we would most highly recommend. Embezzlement insurance protects your money, quite simply, whether it's robbery, theft, embezzlement, and it covers anybody who you entrust with your money. So whether it's your treasurer or someone that you task, a volunteer with, taking cash at the front of your carnival, you have entrusted them with your money, and should they steal it, embezzlement insurance would step in. We have a few, I'll talk a little bit more about ways that you can protect yourself against this type of theft. Obviously, it's not a great idea to have one person collecting cash. You want to have usually two people if possible, and then two people counting the cash at the end of the night, accounting for it. You want to try and deposit money daily, even if your fundraiser is ongoing. Don't have people taking cash home. Try not to keep it in a safe deposit box. I know this is a pretty common practice where throughout the life of the fundraiser, you're just putting money in a safe deposit box every day throughout the fundraiser. We see lots and lots of money go missing this way, and it's difficult to pin down when it went missing because there's no transactional history. So again, anytime that you can deposit money every single day into the bank for a fundraiser, it's always really a great safeguard. The fraud triangle, what we see probably 50% of the time is that embezzlement is not malicious. We see that there's opportunity. So someone has access to either cash or the bank account. There's motivation. They need the money for some reason. And they rationalize it saying that, maybe there's not a lot of expenses coming up in the near future, and they'll pay it back before any of the PTA expenses come about. So this happens, it goes unnoticed, and it starts happening more frequently. And maybe they just, it becomes too easy, or they just don't have the ability to pay it back. And we see that over time, lots of money can go missing. And again, not always malicious. So even if, you trust everyone that you are entrusting your money with, it still happens, and it happens a lot. A couple other ways you can protect yourself from financial loss. So having a checking account that requires 2 signatures. I know this isn't quite as common of a practice these days because we've gotten to be so virtual, but it is a good practice that we recommend. The next 2 items we actually require under our policy, and we put this on our renewals, we put this on our applications. We try to broadcast it everywhere we can. It's in our insurance guide so that all of our PTAs are aware. Someone that does not have check signing authority has to review the bank statements on a monthly basis. This is an excellent practice. It catches so much, whether you have our insurance or you don't. It's an excellent practice. Conducting an annual audit of the books by an audit committee or a qualified accountant. So audit committee just means, 2 or more people that are established for the sole purpose of auditing the annual books. And then obviously a qualified accountant, just a CPA or someone that you hire for that purpose. how much bond coverage do you need? So we offer limits up to $250,000. Although that's not a usual limit, we would recommend that you match your limit to your annual budget. And this, or sorry, not your annual budget revenue, sorry. And this is because of the reason that we see little bits of money over a long period of time. Now, if you're checking your bank accounts, hopefully this doesn't happen and you do catch it. But if you don't, you could lose more money than what you see as being a balance at any given time. So you may say, well, we never have more than $5,000, so we don't need a higher limit. But again, it could be over. The next type of coverage is our directors and officers liability. This is one that we have a real hard time not including as our, you really need this coverage for the reason that, you have PTAs are volunteers and you want to protect your volunteers. So you want to give them that safeguard and make them, feel confident that their decisions are backed up by an insurance policy. This covers basically what we call wrongful acts. So inappropriate use of PTA funds, misleading statements, wrongful or negligent acts, discrimination, not following your bylaws, or misrepresentation. My favorite example is we had a PTA that was having a PTA meeting. They had a particular member that always seemed to get out of hand and cause, kind of a scene. So they had campus police on site and just said, hey, we just want you to be here in case something happens. The member did get out of control. They asked the police to please, remove the individual just for the safety of all the other members. And that member sued them for a violation of their civil rights for having them removed from the meeting. So what we see 9 times out of 10 is that the PTA made what we would say is a really good decision, for the PTA and on behalf of the PTA, but somebody takes an issue with it. And that's just how it happens. We saw kind of an increase with this in COVID. There was a little bit more emotion around how PTA funds should be used during COVID. And there was more opinions about this. And so again, that's an example of somebody just doesn't like the way that you used the funds. Some of the things that are not covered under directors and officers are criminal acts, something that is knowingly wrongful or dishonest, and reckless behavior. So we don't normally see those types of incidents. It's normally good decisions that somebody took an issue with. Last type of coverage is the property. So as I mentioned, this is not real property. This is just for personal property that is in your care, custody, and control. And this protects you from damage due to an accident, theft, or a natural disaster. And a reminder that typically your school insurance is not going to protect your PTA property. Lots of PTAs will say, well, we don't have any property, but what we like to just, remind everybody is that we see that there are oftentimes PTAs taking possession of a large amount of fundraising merchandise or raffle items. And because it's for a short-term period, it doesn't always register as property of the PTA, but that's a pretty big liability. It can be thousands of dollars, obviously, if that fundraising merchandise is damaged or stolen while it's in your possession. So again, this policy is in place and available should you need it for those types of reasons. And again, we understand, we deal with lots of Title I schools. We understand that, the full coverage is not always in the budget, and we are always happy to, listen to the things that the activities that you have, the things that you might own, and help advise you on how best to put what budget you might have for insurance to good use for insurance. One of the other things I want to mention about property, going back to it, is that it is property in your care, custody, and control. So if you borrow something for one of your events, that is also covered. So again, might not think of as your property. We had a PTA borrow a bounce house, and it got damaged beyond the point of repair in an event, and it was covered under the property insurance. So again, just think about if you borrow any property for your events. With that, that was the end of our insurance presentation. But here is, you know, our contact. And again, we love for you to reach out to us. We're always happy to help. We have some good resources on our website. You know, as basic, we have an insurance guide if anybody is familiar, and it's about a 25-page document, but it's meant to be kind of a reference doc, so you don't have to read it from cover to cover. It's just, you have a question about property, or you have a question about if something's covered. That is on our website. There's lots of other resources if you need something. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. We want to help.
Thank you, Jamie. Are there any questions? There is a, I need this in the chat for the resource guide. Do you have a link to the guide, Jamie?
I do. Let me pull it up. Do you want me to post it in the chat?
Please.
Sure.
Thank you. Nicole, please come off mute and share your question.
Hello, good evening. I have the following question. If we rent, like for an event, tables and chairs, this is also under the property insurance? Would be under the property insurance if we take it? Or is it just because you said borrowed property? Does it include if it's rented from a vendor or not?
It depends on what your contract looks like with the vendor. But generally speaking, yes, it would cover property that you take into your possession rented from a vendor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Are there any other questions for Jamie? Maria.
Okay, here we go. I get this question often, and I always usually refer them to AIM. If you're having an event at the school outside of school hours, whether it's a night meeting or maybe a family night or something, do they have to call in and get that like pre-approved or anything, or let the AIM know for the coverage purposes?
You mean just generally clearing any type of event through us?
Yes.
No, not at all. We're pretty easy in terms of events. When it comes to a time of claim, we are looking to see that it was indeed a PTA event. So, you know, you don't have to tell us where you're having it. You don't have to tell us about the event. We're happy to answer questions. But, you know, our policy is not limited to, you know, a certain premise or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Should come off mute when I talk. Are there any other questions? Cornelia.
Hello, good afternoon. Very awesome presentation, by the way. The quick question, do you have like short-term insurance? Like I know PTAs get insured for the year, but if say a PTA was they didn't have the insurance regularly, but they were having like a huge, maybe a back to school event with a lot of different activities like bounce houses and things. Do you have insurance that would cover that for like that frame of time?
We do what we call it a one-day event. So we don't do it for a frame of time. Like if you knew you were having 5 events in a 1-month period, we only do it by event. And it's usually around 50% of the annual cost. If you only have 1 event in the year, then it makes sense to do a single event coverage. But if you have more than, you know, a couple events, it would make more sense to have the annual. But we offer it for general liability and for property. So if you have, you know, if you know, maybe you have this occasion where you only take fundraising merchandise for a very short period, 4 days or less, something like that. We can look at covering that if you don't want a full annual policy for property.
Thank you very much. That was the full of the question.
Thank you. So a question came to me in the chat. Does Florida PTA require insurance? It is generally your school district that will require you to have insurance, and often your county councils as well. So you need to follow the policy of your school district and your county council to make sure that you are covered insurance-wise. Nicole, you have another question?
Yes, please. Who generally signs the insurance policy? Is it the president? Can it be the treasurer? Can it be either of them?
I'm assuming that you're talking about like the application for either a
Yes.
new policy or the renewal. Yeah, it doesn't, anybody that, you know, you charge with renewing your insurance, it doesn't necessarily have to be a president or a treasurer.
Okay, thank you.
Nicole, I would caution you to make sure that it's in the minutes who signs contracts for you, so that you are covered and it is not just any member who is signing a contract and having the local unit held liable.
Okay. Mhm. So there is actually the possibility that or that the board assigns a specific person. By
Yes.
default, it's not by default the president.
Generally speaking, presidents sign contracts,
Yeah.
but your board may make a different decision. And that should
Okay.
be reflected in minutes after a vote.
Okay. So as this was not discussed yet in any board meeting, so like if we now review the insurance policy, should the president sign it?
I'm sorry,
Because
say your
we-
question again for me, please.
So so far this was never discussed in a board meeting. This is new to me. So now because we have to renew the insurance policy, it's due by next week. And we won't have a board meeting before, so then it should be the president signing it, correct? Because we didn't appoint or put down that anybody else could sign it.
At the very least, your executive committee, your officer should talk about the insurance and the coverage that you will have. And then you can decide amongst yourselves who will sign for that policy.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
It is not an individual decision. It should be at the very least the officers, and if not, the broader board of directors.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jamie while we have her here with us? I'm not seeing any additional questions, Jamie.
Carolyn, it's Wendy. I had my hand up.
I saw you clapping, but I didn't see your hand, so thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question. Under the embezzlement insurance, if a board member steals money, you file a police report, and are there any criterias if they file a claim with Ames that they have to meet before any refunds are done? Like, does all their meeting minutes have to be signed?
No. In terms of a claim, we only require that you file a police report. Then it will just depend on the claim, what they need to back up the proof of, you know, the claim at that point. So, you know, if it becomes very difficult to prove, they could ask for additional things, but there's nothing that we can say, you know, you definitely need to have this, this, and this. We just, you know, it could be a very obvious theft. You have, you know, transactions or checks being signed, and it's pretty open and shut. We issue, you know, a check back to you as soon as it's proven. So really it just depends, but nothing that's a standard. No.
Hey, thank you very much, Jamie.
Right. Questions? Jamie has answers for you. So yes, Jamie, there are a couple of things in the chat. One is Mary saying that she's going to share the information with her executive committee, and thank you for a very informative presentation. If she has questions, who do we contact? Contact Jamie. And Jamie, I don't know if you put your contact information in the chat, or would you like me to do it?
You can, you will get we have an entire team dedicated to PTA, so you are always welcome to contact me, but you may get faster responses. So I would say, I will put our main support is just the AIM at aim-companies.com. I'll put it in the chat real quick. Again, if, for whatever reason you would like to contact me, you are more than welcome to do so.
Okay,
But I
and
will
that
put
covers our
main-
second question that's in the chat, also about contacting you about policy questions.
You
Thank
can
you for
contact
sharing.
us through the website. We have a link to contact us through the website. You can contact us directly at this email, call us.
Excellent. I see Pam, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
I spoke to one of your colleagues yesterday about some things we needed with our Facilitron and getting it updated, the insurance policy. Should I reach back out to her to see if everything is okay? Does she normally, or does the team reach back out? And what is that lead time usually?
And just remind me, it's Facilitron where you guys are asking us to upload some certificate data directly to platform?
Yeah, so Facilitron is what we use in our school system to rent the space for our events. So we're having a fall festival, and we have to put in the request to use the gymnasium and the cafeteria and the courtyard. And so when we do that, we also have to submit our insurance policy. But they had some questions on how the insurance policy was set up. So I sent it to one of your colleagues and she said, oh, let me take a look at it and I'll get back to you. But I just wasn't sure what that lead time looks like.
Usually we try to get back to you within 24 hours. So
Okay.
yeah, she should send you this September, the start of school is our absolute craziest time, but you should hear back from her within 24 hours. If you don't, you are welcome to follow up or contact me. You can always call this main line as well and ask for me if you'd like.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Questions? Well, looks like we've come to the end of the road, Jamie. We thank you so much for joining us both at noon and during this evening session. Thank you all members for joining us as well. We invite you to join us next week when our Road to Success at 12 and 7 p.m. will be on membership. Both the links for registration are in the chat now. I'm sure, Jamie, that you'll be hearing from lots of people with their insurance questions and insurance needs. As always, we are grateful to AIM for helping to educate us and our members on insurance.
Well, thank you. And just a
Jamie.
reminder to all the leaders, don't hesitate to, tell all your units to contact us, give them, use us as much as you can for any of the insurance questions that you get.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie. Great job.
Right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to register for next week, everyone.
Oh, look at her kids.
Ah,
Oh,
sorry.
so cute.
Thank you.
Time to have a boy.
Aw. All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Jamie. All right, thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Hi, Maria. Bye, Maria.
Good night. Hi,
Good
everyone.
night.
I made it at home right in time for this. I had a flat tire and it
Oh,
took
wow.
AAA like 4 hours to get to me, but
Oh, my
Ouch.
goodness. Hopefully all is
So-
well. Hi, Kay. Bye, Kay.
Hi and bye, everybody.
Hi,
Hey.
Asia. Good night.
Hi,
Good night.
Aisha.
See you all. Have a good
Yeah.
night.
Bye. Hi, Tiffany. Bye, Tiffany. Guess they're cooking dinner, so they're away from their phones.
Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. I think it went really well. Lots of questions and more people than our noon session.
Definitely. Great job.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good
Good night,
evening.
everyone. Stay safe.
Good night.